Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live Show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and of course, it is the start of NFL Combine Week, and of course, a bunch of great stuff about Matthew Stafford came out this morning and getting us off to a good start in Indianapolis. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. I am joined by our producer here, Jeffrey Cooperstein, and today we got a bunch of great Steelers content on tap here, Coop, but as always, let's start off the show strong. Here we go, Steelers, here we go. Here we go, Steelers, here we go. Here we go, Steelers, here we go. How we doing, Coop, this week? Combine Week should be a fun, eventful week here on Steelers Talk.
Now they can. Omar Khan talking tomorrow to the media, I believe.
Yes, we will have Omar Khan's full press conference on the channel tomorrow at some point. I think he talks at 1 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, 1 p.m.
So it'll be good to see him talk about the quarterback situation and, whether, kind of the mindset the Steelers organization is in right now.
No, I'm not sure he's going to give us anything concrete to talk about, but maybe he will.
Well, I think he'll give us stuff to talk about, but I don't think there's going to be anything definitive.
Right, exactly.
Remember, this time last year, all the reports coming out of Pittsburgh were that the Steelers wanted Mason Rudolph back, and they wanted Rudolph and Pickett to be kind of the quarterback duo to kind of duel it out for the starting job. And then, of course, just a few short weeks later, we had Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as the quarterbacks of the Pittsburgh Steelers for last season. So I don't think anybody really knows what the Steelers are going to do for sure at the quarterback position right now. I think it's a lot of guessing. As to the approach the Steelers are going to have heading into the offseason here. But the one thing that I do feel pretty confident in is that the Steelers really want to try and compete next season. I think that they think that they're close to being Super Bowl contenders. I think a lot of Steelers fans, disagree with that. And heck, I even think that's a dubious proposition. But I do think the Steelers are going to be trying to make some big moves here to try and at least give Cam Hayward a chance to win a ring in a Steelers uniform. So we'll see what they end up doing. But today we got the latest Steelers news and rumors, specifically draft rumors from Daniel Jeremiah, some good stuff from DJ we're going to cover at the top of today's show. Then we've got some big moves to create even more cap space for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got 5 things the Commanders can do, or the Steelers can do, to create more cap space. And then we've got mid-round quarterback targets for the Steelers to target this year. I've got players to avoid. I've got day 3 draft targets and day 2 draft targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is our donation menu for today's live show, guys. Every $5 that gets sent in, we'll do a Here We Go Steelers. We'll wave the towel a little bit. Every $10 that we make on today's show is a candy toss. I got the Mike and Ike's today. You guys can't see the bag because it's green, but I'll toss a Mike and Ike to Coop, and if he catches it, nothing happens. But if he drops it, I got to do 10 jumping jacks for every single miss, all right? Every $20 we make today, I got to do 10 push-ups. $100 total on today's show. We'll extend today's live show by 10 minutes to talk more Steelers football with you guys. And then $200 total today, I will drink a boot, a big glass boot full of water, because I don't drink beer. But I'll do a water boot to finish out today's show if we can get to $200. Just got our first super chat of the day coming in from Black and Yellow Podcast as Stafford and Cup for George Pickens. AAH. Why am I blanking on AH?
I'm also blanking on
I'm blanking on AH. First and a third. So just I don't think Cup will be a part of the deal if the Steelers end up trading for Stafford. I mean, maybe he is. Who knows? But I think that I put it out on the video earlier. I think it would probably be a pick swap in round 1. So the Steelers would move from 21 to 26, but they'd still have a first-round pick. And then they would send the second-round pick this year to the Rams. So you still have your first-round pick, and if you want to get another second-round pick...
Oh, he's talking about Highsmith.
Oh, Alex Highsmith. That's way too much. I mean, that's way, way, way too much for Stafford. Alex Highsmith. That's a good one. George Pickens, Alex Highsmith, those are 2 very valuable assets, in my opinion. And then a first and a third is also very valuable assets. Stafford's not worth that much at 37 years old, in my opinion. Plus, the Steelers will have to pay him a big contract. So I think pick swap in round 1 and then a second-round pick should be enough to get the job done if they want to pursue him. $2 super chat from my man Young Noticeable says we need to have a Rams offseason and go all in on a Super Bowl. And I think this is what the Steelers are kind of gearing up to do.
F the picks.
You know, I don't even know if it's F the picks. Like, I still think they're going to try and keep a lot of these picks. You know, I don't think they're going to be trying to trade too many draft picks. But I do think they're going to be trying to compete for a Super Bowl next year. You know, that is the focus of this football team. And, you know, if you think this team should rebuild, I actually think that's a very valid take. You know, this is certainly a team that has been stuck in place for a very long time. A lot of people don't believe this team can get to a Super Bowl with Mike Tomlin, and I don't necessarily disagree with those people. But I think the team thinks that they're close, and I would expect some big moves, some big win-now moves from this football team heading into 2025. If you guys also want to send in your donations today via Venmo, Cashapp, and PayPal, we actually get to keep more of the proceeds when you send it to any of these locations. You guys can send it Venmos to @Jack-Sperry, _Captain Jack 19 on Cash App, or @Captain Jack Rabbit on PayPal. YouTube takes a 30% cut of every super chat you send in. So we're not going to say no to super chats, but just know YouTube does take a 30% cut of that super chat. So if you want us to keep more of that donation money, you guys can send it in via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. All right, who's all here? Let me know in the chat. Spam those me's in the chat if you have made it to today's live show. We've already got 130 people here to kick off Combine Week. We got Terry Reed, we got John Masood, who just put in a $10 super chat. We'll get to that in a second. We got Young Noticeable. We got Donna Elliott. We got Vincent. We got Chuck Dugan. What's up, Chuck? We got Dominic. What's up, Dominic? Brock Walker is here as always. Robert Locke is here. Jack Hay, Donald Jr., Milton Sanchez, Andrew. We've got Pickensburg Prods. We got Morgan Hoover, Jack Hay, John Parks, Robert Sutton. We've got Christopher Domingo. We've got, who else here? We got Kaleo, Robert Maxwell. What's up, Robert? Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, Robert. We got Tim Robinson. We've got Tim Hopper. Thick Clappa is here. What's up, Thick Clappa? Good to see you. Good stuff. We got CJ Ross, Mr. Deadhead. Do we have the super chat? Or
Yeah,
is
it's loading right now.
Just loading right now? Okay, so we'll get to the super chat here in just a second. Jack Hay is here. Make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. It really does help us out. It tells the YouTube algorithm to push this video out to more Steelers fans so we can get as many people in the chat room as possible to talk some Steelers football. And, of course, we've got the lovely Cassie Voth. I haven't seen Cassie in a while. She's been in Minnesota visiting family. But I get to see her here coming up soon. So I miss you, babe. Thanks for stopping by today. We got John Masood with a $10 super chat. That's 2. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. There we go, John. I appreciate you. So that means we got a candy toss here.
John didn't say my name, so I'm not sure if we should do a candy toss.
Well, I think we're doing a candy toss.
Maybe I'll intentionally miss then.
Maybe you will intentionally miss.
What the hell, John?
Yeah, John, why not Coop? What's going on,
That's a little weird, man.
What are we doing? All right, so got the candy toss here.
All right, we haven't done these in a while, so.
Yeah, I know. So you're a little.
I need to stretch my mouth a little bit.
Pause. All right, so we've got the little strawberry Mike and Ike here. You ready for it?
Yep. Strawberry.
I'm gonna put strawberry. Never had the pink.
Oh, okay.
Pink Mike and Ike. All right, ready? I'm gonna loft it up a little bit.
Oh, you're going overhand?
Oh, you want me to underhand it?
Underhand.
You prefer underhand?
I like a lob.
All right. Up. And no! It didn't
Where'd it go?
I think it's on the ground.
God.
All right, I gotta do 20 jumping jacks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right.
We got another one from John.
John coming in with another 10. Says Coop.
I just want to feel included, John. That's all.
All right, here we go. Another one.
Yep.
Think you can get this one, because... All right, here we go.
All right, hang on.
Still chewing.
These don't swallow easily.
These don't swallow easily.
All right,
Gotcha. And it's up. Oh, and it's off the rim again. 1, 2,
Joey
3,
is still the mouth.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, that's a good workout to start off today's show. Getting the juices flowing. Appreciate you guys. $2 super chat from Morgan Hoover. Says, when do you do the fan mock drafts on the show? We're planning on doing that sometime this week. You guys submitted some fan mock drafts last week. We're currently working on getting that video together. We'll probably put it on the live show on Thursday. So 5:30 Eastern is when we're going to be going live on Thursday. So Morgan, you can check it out on Thursday afternoon. So we're going to get into our first segment here. The latest Steelers news and rumors is coming up here. Big moves for cap space is coming up a little bit later, and then we'll finish up today's live show with my mid-round quarterback targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season in terms of the draft. So lots of good stuff coming up on today's show. Let's get into our first segment right now, the latest news and rumors surrounding the NFL draft for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and we got a bunch of great Steelers draft rumors to cover on today's show, featuring Daniel Jeremiah. DJ has come out with lots of very interesting tidbits surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they could be potentially planning for the 2025 NFL draft this year. So he's got some stuff that we're going to talk about on today's show. And if you guys want NFL Combine coverage all week long, make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now and join the Steelers Talk family. We're going to be putting out a bunch of short content. We're going to be putting out a full press conference from Omar Khan. He's talking to the media on Tuesday, so we're going to be putting that out on the video. I'm going to be putting out all of the takeaways that we get from Omar Khan, Mike Tomlin, as they speak to the media in Indianapolis this week. So if you don't want to miss any of that content, make sure you click that subscribe button right now and join the over 76,000 Yinzers already subscribed to Steelers Talk. So let's start here with Ashton Jeanty here, where Daniel Jeremiah has the running back out of Boise State falling to the Pittsburgh Steelers in round one of his latest mock draft. And, I think that if Jeanty is there for the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason, and you're sitting at number 21 and he somehow gets to you, you got to do it, all right? And I think that, the Steelers are looking for a big impact player at this position in the NFL draft, and there's just no other player at this position in this year's class that's going to provide as much impact, in my opinion, in year one than this guy right here, the Heisman finalist. You take a look at my scouting report, you guys can see the pros section is pretty filled, and there's not much in the con section. I will say the one con is that he was very heavily used at Boise State, so the tread on the tires might not be as much as some of the other people in this class, but in terms of just a pure skill set, I think Jeanty is a really, really blue-chip quality running back prospect. He's got great long speed, can hit home runs. He's got great acceleration, so once he sees the hole, he can get right through there, and then he uses the long speed to finish big-time runs, so he's a big play machine. He's got great contact balance, so he makes guys miss out in space. He's got great vision. He picks the right hole to run into each and every time, it seems like. He's a great receiving threat, good hands, maybe not an elite receiving threat, but he's certainly a threat in that department. He's certainly got the stamina to be a workhorse back in the National Football League. His pass protection is excellent, and he also brings good power to the table. Easy round one grade for Ashton Jeanty, who I think is going to be a big impact player for wherever he goes and plays football next season. Now, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Arthur Smith, even with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren last year, even though this run offense wasn't super successful, they still ran it at a top 5 rate in the National Football League last year. So this is an offense that wants to be run through the run game, all right? So if they don't have a successful run game next year, the chances of the Steelers being a successful offense and team as a whole go down significantly. So my take on Ashton Jeanty when it comes to the Steelers is that if they want an immediate impact at the running back position, and they do, and Jeanty's available, I mean, you gotta take up that opportunity, because I think this guy right here has an opportunity to make an Ezekiel Elliott type of impact on his team in year one. That is, if they have the right offensive line, and the Steelers believe in their young offensive line. They believe in Broderick Jones. They believe in Mason McCormick. They believe in Troy Fautano, and they think that unit is going to take the next step next year. So Jeanty would certainly be a back that could take advantage of that if the O-line, is worth their salt next year. But the big question on everybody's mind right now is, could Ashton Jeanty fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Is this really a realistic possibility for the Steelers, like Daniel Jeremiah suggests in his latest mock draft? Well, you take a look at the NFL draft order this year, and you take a look at the teams that could potentially be looking at getting a running back this year before the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, there's a few teams in there. The Las Vegas Raiders might be looking at Genty, maybe the Saints, maybe the Chicago Bears. The Dallas Cowboys is certainly a team that Genty gets connected to quite often. Of course, the Denver Broncos are a team that could use a running back. They're drafting right before the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 20 overall. And, the teams that come after the Steelers don't really matter in terms of this conversation, in my opinion. But I think the top 4 teams that the Steelers fans need to be looking out for in terms of Genty destinations in round 1, he could go as high as 6, in my opinion, to the Las Vegas Raiders. We know Pete Carroll is somebody that likes to prioritize running the football, and Genty could certainly provide that spark to the Raiders offense day 1. The New Orleans Saints, we know Kellen Moore comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles, where he had Saquon Barkley to kind of really help out his offense and set the foundation for that Eagles offensive attack. Maybe he wants to set up the same kind of system there with the New Orleans Saints. The Dallas Cowboys, Genty's a big-time star. We know how much Jerry Jones loves his big-name star players. And then the Denver Broncos have a good offensive line. They've got that offensive line in place. So if you can get the right running back, they could really be a dangerous rushing attack. I think the Denver Broncos will be very much in on Ashton Genty this year, which means that the Steelers, to get him, would likely need to trade up. And I think that if Genty gets past the Dallas Cowboys at number 12, I think that the Steelers could very well be looking into maybe doing a trade up into the teens to be able to draft Genty if he is still on the board, just like they did for Broderick Jones back a couple of seasons ago when they really didn't even give up that much. They gave up a 4th-round draft pick to go out and get Broderick Jones in the 1st round. They moved up from number 20 to number 14 with the New England Patriots to go and get Broderick Jones. And if a similar situation arises this year where, Pittsburgh can go up for Ashton Genty, I think that they might take that opportunity just because of how important the running back position is. This was the Broderick Jones trade of 2 seasons ago, 2 off seasons ago, where you pick swap the 1st rounders and then you give the Patriots a 4th round pick. And if the opportunity arises here, let's say it's the same pick, number 14 with the Indianapolis Colts this year. You can offer pick number 21 and pick number 122 in the 4th round. And if the Colts are willing to take that for a guy like Ashton Genty, who could be a complete game-changing presence in the Steelers' run-first style of offense, I think this is certainly something I would consider, especially if you get a corner in free agency, especially if you get a nickel corner in free agency, especially if you get a wide receiver in free agency and you don't have as many pressing needs heading into the draft. I think this is certainly something that I would consider if I'm Pittsburgh. But let me know down there in the comments section, would you accept this trade to go out and get Ashton Genty or any other player in round 1? Type Y for yes or N for no. Personally, I definitely would, because I think Genty is that good of a prospect. But let me know what you guys think for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And while I'm talking about PrizePicks, give me a yes or a no down there in the comments section. All right, now let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks, which is the best place to get real money sports action all on your phone. Join over 10 million members and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday, where every Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. You guys can take a look at an NBA projection here and what that looks like. You got NBA, you got MLB, you've got NHL, whatever is going on, NASCAR even. You guys can get it on PrizePicks today. For this one, we're taking the more on points, rebounds, and assists for Luka Doncic. We're taking the more on points for Kyrie Irving and the less on points for the King, LeBron James. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you download the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. Another thing that I think should be on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers in round 1 is, could they potentially trade back or stay put to take Omarion Hampton out of UNC? Hampton is really, really good as a prospect in his own right. And I think that, if the Steelers are really looking to get an impact player at running back and to do it early in the draft, I think Hampton is somebody to keep your eye on as well. You take a look at Hampton's profile here in my scouting report on him. I think his acceleration is really, really good for his size. He's got great workhorse back type of size. The long speed, I think, is good, not great. It's not elite like Genty's is, but it's certainly good enough if he finds a crease. The power that he brings to the table at his size is really, really good. Consistently fights forward for that extra 2 to 3 yards. He is a receiving threat. He's not a dynamic one, but he's good enough. He's got really, really good vision and contact balance as well. Now, he's not going to make people miss in space. He's going to opt to try to run people over in space. So, if there's a tackler that meets him, he's not going to necessarily break a tackle and take it to the house, but if he finds a seam, he can take it to the house, and he can fight forward for that extra yardage. I have a late round 1, early day 2 grade on Omarion Hampton, and I think that I would draft Hampton in round 1, but probably not at number 21 overall. I think if Genty's off the board and the Steelers still want to take a running back in round 1, what I would do is I would trade down and I would get another draft pick, and I would try and get Hampton later in the first round or in the early second round. So if you loved Omarion Hampton, just like you love Ashton Genty, you really want to get a running back early on to be your new star running back in this scheme, which I could see the Steelers wanting, I would rather trade down because I'm just not sure if Hampton is worth the number 21 overall pick, but like number 28, 29, somewhere in that range, I would certainly think about that. Now, to be clear, I'd be cool just taking a running back on day 2 as well. I probably wouldn't wait until day 3 just because the Steelers need an impact player at this position. But, if you wanted to go out on day 2 in round 2 or in round 3 and get one of the guys that is probably going to go on day 2, I'm perfectly okay with that as well. It's a great running back class. If you'd rather get a corner in round 1, if you'd rather get a defensive tackle in round 1, if you'd rather get a wide receiver in round 1, absolutely, the Steelers can do that as well because with guys like Cam Scatterbo, Dylan Sampson, Caleb Johnson, Quinshon Judkins, Devin Neal, somebody I love out of Kansas as well. There's a lot of great options for the Pittsburgh Steelers on day 2. So if they can't get Hampton or Ashton Genty in round 1, I think that's perfectly fine. So now we'll shift to the second story from Daniel Jeremiah today where he compared Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart to Eagles quarterback and Super Bowl champion now, Jalen Hurts, which has gotten a lot of people, talking because some people think that Dart is worth a first-round pick. This is what Daniel Jeremiah had to say. Dart has got kind of a similar build to Hurts, similar frame. They're both really good athletes. They're both beloved by their teammates, say the right things, do all the right things, and do all the stuff on and off the field. There's a lot of similarities there. And, considering Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl championship, that's pretty high praise from Daniel Jeremiah, saying that he potentially thinks Dart could be a similar type of player to what Hurts has become, which is a borderline top 10 quarterback in the National Football League that just won a Super Bowl title and a Super Bowl MVP at that. And I can see where the comp comes from, all right? These guys have a very similar profile to each other. Hurts, when he was coming out, you got to remember, he had a lot of issues coming out. All right, and Dart has a very similar kind of mold there where he's got some physical tools that really get you excited and give him starter upside in this league. But like Hurts, he definitely has things to work on in his game before he gets there. There is a reason why Hurts went on day 2 and not day 1 of his NFL draft, and I think Dart is going to have to make a similar type of progression in the league if he is going to have the kind of success that Hurts has had since he took over the job in Philly. You can take a look at my scouting report here on Jackson Dart. I think he brings good size to the table. He does have an NFL arm, maybe not an elite arm, but it is very good. I think the accuracy generally is pretty good. Touch passing down the field is really where he is at his best. He's got a really great deep ball, just like Jalen Hurts does. I think he does show some flashes of anticipation on his film. I love his competitive toughness. We know how competitive Jalen Hurts is. Dart is a very similar type of competitor in that way, and he's a plus rusher. I won't say he's as good as Hurts as a rusher, but I certainly think that they're a similar type of athlete. But the cons: footwork, pocket presence, his ability to feel pressure is certainly not fantastic, but neither is Jalen Hurts's, and even now it's not that great. But he certainly makes it work with a good offensive line. Decision-making, there is some games and some big moments where Dart really didn't show up. Made some boneheaded decisions, some really bad interceptions. That's something to keep tabs on. And I do think he has slightly limited upside, all right? And I'm not sure if he's going to be a superstar in the league, but you got to remember here, the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to follow Philadelphia's team-building model. All right, Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, they're trying to build this Steelers team in kind of the same light as the Eagles built their Super Bowl championship team win in the trenches, run game first, play defense, and have competent quarterback play. If we're going to be comparing Jackson Dart to Jalen Hurts, could he potentially be the Steelers' version of that type of quarterback in this system? I certainly think it is a possibility that the Steelers view Dart in that way, but don't make a mistake. I don't think they're going to draft him in the first round. I think if they draft him, it's going to be on day 2 of the NFL draft. I think it's an interesting conversation to have. And, I think that if Dart's available then on round 2 or in round 3, depending on how much the Steelers like him, I could see this team pulling the trigger for it. This is certainly a team that might be bringing in a veteran quarterback option like Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, or Russell Wilson this offseason. And if they don't bring back Justin Fields and they're looking for somebody to sit a couple of years and develop and be a potential long-term starting quarterback option, I do think Dart is in the conversation in terms of middle-round quarterbacks that the Steelers will be looking at. So you be the GM. Let me know down there in the comments section. Would you draft Jackson Dart in the 3rd round? Type D if you would draft him, or type P if you would pass on him. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Thanks for making it through today's video of Steelers draft rumors. We got more stuff coming your way all throughout NFL Combine Week. We got a bunch of great stuff coming your way. You're not going to want to miss any of it, so click that subscribe button right now. All right, first segment in the books. Anything that caught your eye about that particular segment there, Coop?
I'm curious what you think on Hampton, because you say you wouldn't draft him at 21, but how far, or what's the earliest you draft him in? I guess is my question.
If you trade down, you get another draft pick. It doesn't really matter to me how far you go down.
But you wouldn't take him with our own pick.
I wouldn't take him with 21.
Okay.
If you get another pick, if you get another pick to go along with him, and you really need to fill out some of these needs, I would think about it. Hampton's a really good player, but I would also, honestly, if I'm GM Omar Khan, I'm probably opting to just draft the best player of a position of need at 21 and not take Hampton.
Fair enough.
I've seen
if he's best player available, you'd rather go best need available.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a player of his caliber at another position. Steelers have needs at running back. They got needs at wide receiver. They got needs at defensive tackle. There's going to be a player at a position of need that's going to fit the grading of a round 1 pick. So, I think that Hampton probably won't happen. I think if he falls to the Steelers at 52, I think he becomes a possibility, but probably not in round 1. We got Hybrid God, $5 super chat. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. He says Stafford gets us closer, but can't overpay with the other holes still left if we want to make a real run. Defensive tackle, wide receiver, guard, cornerback, nose tackle. What are your picks for each position? So if they get Stafford and they pay him $50 million, let's just say it's $50 million per season.
Yep.
Right now, I'm projecting the Steelers before the Stafford trade would have $89 million, or around $89 million in effective cap space. So that's cap space you're able to use on veterans in free agency. So if $50 million of that goes to Stafford, that means the Steelers still have just under $40 million to spend on other positions. All right, and I think they can get some really good depth in the draft at defensive tackle. I think they can get a running back in the draft. Wide receiver, I think they can get one affordable on the free agency market and draft one. I think they're probably going to go affordable kind of depth piece at guard. I think they're going to go with Mason McCormick to start at right guard next year. I think that's their plan. I think that was always the plan. And I think that McCormick will be the starting guard. As for corner, you can certainly, with $40 million, pick up at least one starting corner. And then nose tackle, once again, you take a DT and an NT in the draft, and those are your guys there. So I think that the Steelers can make it work if they trade for Matthew Stafford. I think that they will have enough cap space to get the veterans that they need, and they will still have the draft picks at their disposal to fill out the rest of the roster. But that's just my opinion. Got Charmander and Froki says I would give 3 more years for the NFL to become flag football. Also, I would take Stafford as 1, and as my number 2 can be Winston or Flacco. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily mind Winston or Flacco. If they get Stafford, if they get somebody that's older, Coop, that's when I'm okay with going with drafting a mid-round quarterback. Somebody like Jackson Dart, somebody like Tyler Shuck.
Because then you'll have time to develop someone, because Stafford's your QB for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah. If you have Stafford, or if you have Rodgers, or if you have Russ, you can draft a mid-round quarterback that you believe in and develop him behind that veteran quarterback. So I think that if they go with Stafford or if they go with Rodgers or they go with Russ, I think that's when it really becomes a possibility that they draft somebody here. $5 super chat from Just Webb's World says, so we want all these quarterbacks. Who do they throw to? Because does it help Hurts a lot throwing to 2 Pro Bowl caliber wide receivers? So who is that in Pittsburgh and who's the offensive line? So right now, Just Webb's World, the Steelers think and the Steelers believe that their young offensive line, Broderick Jones at left tackle, Sayamalo at left guard, Frazier at center, McCormick at right guard, and Fautano at right tackle, they think that that is going to develop into a really good offensive line.
I'm not sure I believe them.
Now, maybe that won't be the case, all right? Broderick's certainly been, not great at right tackle, but, he is moving back to his home at left tackle, so at least there's that. McCormick struggled down the stretch last year, but he was moving from left guard to right guard coming out of college. I still think McCormick is a great physical talent.
I think I have less worry about McCormick than I do Broderick, if I'm being honest.
And something I would love to see the Steelers do is bring back James Daniels on a 1-year deal. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate Daniels coming back on a 1-year deal, especially if it's really cheap, because he is coming off that injury, and I don't think he's going to get a massive contract. So maybe Pittsburgh's pitch to him is come back for another year, play your ass off, and then get a bag in 2026.
Yeah,
maybe that's what it is.
And you think Dan Moore walks regardless?
Yeah, Dan Moore's gone. I do expect James Daniels to be gone. A lot of people talk about the Steelers needing a guard. I think they're going to stick with Mason McCormick.
I think Mason McCormick showed enough upside to where he should be given a chance, so I'm okay with that one.
And we have to remember, last year, the Steelers never planned on playing Mason McCormick. They were planning on a full year of him on the bench to learn right guard, and because of the Daniels injury, he had to be thrusted into the starting lineup. So, of course he was going to struggle a little bit when you think about it, but you would have liked to see him play a little bit better down the stretch. He really struggled down the stretch, but I think the Steelers still really believe in Mason McCormick, and I do think they signed a backup guard or something, to get depth, but I think that they're going to stick with the young guys, at least in terms of the starting positions. All right, coming up next, we've got the big moves for the Pittsburgh Steelers to create cap space. I've got all the moves that I think the Steelers could make that are pretty darn big that could get this team close to around $90 million in effective cap space heading into this offseason. So that's quite a bit. Right now you're sitting at about 57. With these moves, they're going to be around 90. All right, so let's get into it. Right now we got over 200 people watching. Let's get into the big moves coming that could give the Steelers more cap space. Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be revealing 8 big moves that Omar Khan, the Steelers GM, could make this offseason to give this team more cap space for the 2025 offseason to spend on players in free agency and via draft. Before we get into the content today, for live reactions to Steelers news all throughout the 2025 offseason, you guys can follow me on X at Jack_Sperry. Every time there's a new story, every time there's a new rumor, everything. I put out my reaction on X before I come here on Steelers Talk. So if you want to see my instant reaction to everything Steelers every single day, you can find me at Jack_Sperry. So let's start this conversation here with the current effective cap space. This number comes from Over the Cap. And what effective cap space means, guys, is the money that you're allowed to spend on free agents and trade pieces, all right? Because you have to spend a certain amount of money on the draft, and you've got other cap charges that go to the team every single year. So this is the money right here, just about $56 million, just under $57 million that the Steelers currently have available to spend on free agents. So let's make some moves to create some more cap space here. Let's start with cutting Larry Ogunjobi and others, all right? And there's still, I think, 4 players that the Steelers could cut to save quite a bit of cap space here. The first one being Larry Ogunjobi. And, Ogunjobi, as a full-time starter last year, just had a sack and a half, 5 tackles for loss, 41 total tackles. It's just underwhelming, especially for somebody of the cap hit that Ogunjobi is. And I do think that the Steelers would be better served by letting Ogunjobi go because you save $7 million if you do so. And I think that $7 million can certainly be used in other areas to get different players. And I think that in such a good defensive tackle class, the Steelers can pretty easily replace Ogunjobi in the NFL draft this year with somebody in the middle rounds. So some other potential cuts here. I think Cole Holcomb, coming off of that really nasty knee injury, didn't play at all last year. I just don't know if you can trust him enough to have the cap hit that he's going to have in 2023. 2.5, so I think you'd rather have the $6 million you get by cutting him. Cordero Patterson, to be frank, he's a little fat now. He's not the same player that he used to be. Saved $2.8 million by letting him go. And then Cameron Johnston, it's really unfortunate because I was really excited to see him punt for this team last year. And he gets injured in the first game, and then Corliss Waitman comes in, and he's cheaper than he is right now, and he punted really well for this team. So I think that Johnston might be cut at some point here. That saves another $1.5 million. Then two more moves that I think are a must for GM Omar Khan this offseason is you got to restructure Alex Highsmith and Pat Fryermuth's deals. Got multiple years left on those contracts. The cap gets bigger every single year. It just doesn't make sense to not restructure these two contracts. And you can save $7.8 million by restructuring Highsmith's deal, and you can save $7.2 by restructuring Fryermuth's deal. So that's a big chunk of change right there. That's $15 million just in these two moves alone to add to the Steelers' effective cap space. So these moves would save, in total, the cuts and the restructures, $32.3 million in cap space for the Steelers this offseason. That's quite a bit because that gets the Steelers to $89.2 million in effective cap space this year, which is obviously significant. All right, that is a lot of money. That's going to allow you to pay a contract for Matthew Stafford if you want to go trade for him and elevate your quarterback position. It's going to allow you to maybe, if you want to go the Justin Fields route and pay $15 to $20 million for Justin Fields, you're going to have a ton of money to spend on everybody else on the roster, right? You're going to be able to build one of the more complete rosters in football around Justin Fields or Aaron Rodgers or anybody else that signs like a $20 million per season contract because you've created all this cap space heading into free agency. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. Is Pittsburgh just one good offseason away from being Super Bowl contenders? Personally, I'm an optimist. I think that if they really kill it this offseason, they can get there, all right? I think they can. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Yes or no? With one good offseason, can the Steelers get to Super Bowl contention? Let me know your thoughts for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a second. I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Fanatics here in just a second. But when that happens, go down there in the comment section. Simply give me a yes or a no to today's pinned comment. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics. And they've got this awesome Steelers beanie available on their website on sale right now, guys. It's still cold in Pittsburgh, all right? It's cold a lot of different areas around the United States right now. So wherever you are around the world, you can always use a good Steelers beanie. And right now you can get this one for just $20. That is a fantastic steal from our friends at Fanatics. You can go chatsports.com/beanie to get this beanie in your closet today and stay bundled up this winter. Then another thing the Steelers could do, and I want to get this out of the way, I'm not advocating for this, but they could trade George Pickens to get a little bit more cap relief if they want. Now, for me, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze, all right? And we'll talk about the savings that you get by cutting George in just a second, but I'm not an advocate of trading George, guys. I don't think the wide receiver market this year is good enough to let go of George this offseason, unless Pickens is like demanding to get a contract extension or he's not playing next year. If I'm the Steelers, I want George in this locker room next year because he is a phenomenal receiving talent. And, you know, I think what I want them to do is I want them to keep him for another season, and I would like them to bring in a respected veteran at the wide receiver position to help mentor him, teach him how to be a true professional. Apparently, Deontay Johnson was not that for him when he was here. But two guys that come to my mind is Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp. These are two guys that are heralded for their work ethic, for their professionalism, all these different things that are the concern of the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to George Pickens. I think that Adams and Kupp are two very well-respected leaders in this day and age at the wide receiver position that I think Pickens would listen to and hopefully turn around what has been a tumultuous start his tenure here in Pittsburgh. I really, really hope he can be here for the long term, especially because if you trade him, you only save like $3.5 million if you send him elsewhere. And, $3.5 million is not nothing, but, to trade away one of the most talented receivers in the game, I just don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze there. And if you can keep George Pickens this offseason, that's what I want them to do. But if they do trade George Pickens, God, they better have a plan at number one wide receiver. Whether that's Devontae Adams, whether that's somebody early in the draft, whether that's something else, they better have a plan to be this team's number one receiver if they trade him. Because last year they traded Deontay Johnson away, obviously, and they they didn't really have a plan. I mean, if you do that again this offseason, you trade away George Pickens, you better frickin' have a plan, Omar Khan, because if you don't, it's going to be ugly in the wide receiver room next year. Then another potential big move that Omar could consider is trading Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had kind of a down year last year in terms of the production he brought to the table. He is getting older, and his cap hit is still very large. So if the Steelers want some cap relief, they can trade Minkah. The only thing is, I think it's really unlikely because he's so close with Mike Tomlin. And, we talk about Cam Hayward and this team wanting to get him a ring before he retires in 2 years all the time. Tomlin wants to get Minkah a ring here in Pittsburgh as well. Like, it's not just Cam. Like, there's a multitude of guys that have been here for a while that Tomlin wants to have the confetti rain down on. And Minkah's one of those players. He's practically a player coach at this point in time. He sits in on the defensive coaches meeting every single week with Mike Tomlin and Tara Lawson and all the defensive staff. Like, he's pretty much a player coach out there. And I just don't know if the super loyal Mike Tomlin is going to sign off on trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick. And, the Steelers would save $8.6 million by letting him go and trading him away. Plus, they would get another draft pick in a trade, obviously. But they also take on $13.71 million in dead cap this offseason, which is a lot. All right, that is a lot. And, I think when Mike Tomlin, looks at the calculus here, this is not something that he's going to want to do. He's not going to want to take on $13+ million in dead cap to trade away one of his favorite players on the entire team. I mean, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think that it does make a little bit of sense in terms of team building. And, if you can get a good draft pick for Minkah, I think that, that would be a good thing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. But I just think that, if you're going to trade Minkah, you better embrace a full rebuild. You better trade Watt. You better trade Hayward. You better trade all of your expensive, older defensive pieces along with him. Because, I think that if you're going to go through the rebuild route, you gotta really go all in on that. But the Steelers clearly aren't doing that. They're trying to win now, and I think that they believe Minkah Fitzpatrick is the type of player that can help them win now. And I'll spoil it for you guys right now. They're not going to trade Minkah Fitzpatrick, all right? Like, it's a move that they could consider. There's some rumblings that there's some people in the building that would prefer to trade him after kind of a down season last year and a massive cap hit heading into 2025. But Mike Tomlin is the guy in charge here in Pittsburgh, and Minkah's one of his favorite players. So I just really, really would be shocked if they ended up considering a trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick at the end of the day. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I think that the Steelers are going to be making some moves here in preparation for NFL free agency here, clearing up cap space so that they can fill up this roster with more talent heading into the 2025 season. Every time they make a big move, we got you covered here on Steelers Talk. So what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button right now. All right, we got some more super chats rolling in. $5 from Chris. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. He says, I think the Steelers should sign Fields as the starter for this season and draft our future quarterback next year. Thus, teams need a structure to follow.
That's definitely an option.
It's an option, but
it's not the best.
But
option.
if we're signing Fields and we're already talking about drafting a quarterback next year, how much belief do you really have in Justin Fields? I keep saying it on this show. The Steelers are trying to win now. All right, I know a lot of Steelers fans want to, look ahead to the future and get a long-term option, a younger quarterback.
It's about the next 2 years.
It really is about the next 2 years for this team because they want to get Cam Hayward a ring before he retires. Now, somebody replied to me on Twitter today saying if they really want to get Cam Hayward a ring, trade him to the Eagles. And that's a fair enough point. But the Steelers want him to do it in Pittsburgh, right? Cam wants to do it in Pittsburgh. So whether you agree with the strategy or not, the Steelers are going to try to win. And the quarterback that they bring in next year is going to be the guy that they think gives them the best chance to do it.
I don't believe that's Justin Fields.
And I have a hard time believing after they benched Fields last year after 6 games and he's started 0 games since that they really believe he gives them the best chance to win a Super Bowl.
I still think they like Russ over Fields if it comes down to those two. Ideally,
for the same amount of money. I think they'd prefer Fields for a lower contract number than Russ at 30.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But if all things were equal, I think they'd prefer Russ. However, I think they'd prefer an outside option over both of them.
I agree. I'm on record saying I think Aaron Rodgers is the most likely option right now because Tomlin loves him. He protects the football. He still has pretty darn good arm talent, man. When you watch him, he's definitely not Kirk Cousins, where he's got a noodle arm now. He still has the Aaron Rodgers arm.
Raji,
He
Staffy.
does. And by the way, Rodgers would bring in Devontae Adams, which obviously is something Mike Tomlin would love. They tried to get him at the trade deadline last year.
Or Staffy.
Or Staffy. We'll see what happens with Stafford. I think they're going to re-sign Stafford, though.
What about Geno?
Yeah, that's right. Geno put out something today indicating he might want out of Seattle. I would be interested in Geno.
I would too. I think Geno, if he becomes available, I think he would be. We both agree on this. I think he'd be my number 2 option behind Stafford as guys I'd want.
Yeah, I'd probably put Geno number 2. I think he's so underrated. Geno's a good player, man. Got 5 here from Just Webb's World. What's up, Just Webb's World? Says they should focus on building the wide receiver room. Darnold and Geno were busts and got wide receivers and became relevant. Got a Mecca or trade up for Ted Aurora out of Arizona. I mean, if you can trade up for T-Mac, if there's some way somehow he gets out of the top 10 and you can trade up for that guy, I am
tell you this,
in on that.
If McMillan is at the Cowboys at 12, they will draft him.
Over Genty?
Yes.
T-Mac is so good, man. I
wouldn't trade up for Ibuka, though.
I wouldn't trade up for Ibuka either. I think he might be there at 21. So,
would you consider that?
I'd consider it.
Yeah.
Ibuka's a good fit. So I would certainly consider him if he were at 21. Wide receiver is certainly an option. But, I think that...
Is he a Mike Tomlin guy?
Yeah, definitely Mike Tomlin guy. Definitely Mike Tomlin guy. So, yeah, that's... But here's the thing. Justin Fields had DJ Moore in Chicago.
Yeah, he did.
And he was still not good. He had George Pickens here in Pittsburgh. Still not good. I don't think it's...
I think it's over for Fields.
I don't think it's a wide receiver issue for Fields, honestly. But who knows, man? Maybe if you get another great receiver, Fields turns it around.
Could, very well possible.
I'm definitely rooting for Fields. I
want him to do well. I just don't think he will.
Yeah, fair enough. So here's our donation menu today, guys. If you want to get on the show, just like Just Webb's World and Chris, $5, we'll do a Here We Go Steelers for you every 10. We'll do a candy toss, $20 super chats. We'll do 10 push-ups, $100 total today, and right now we're about halfway there. We'll stay live for 10 extra minutes, all right? So we got one more segment. If we can get another $50 here, guys, we'll stay live for an extra 10 minutes to talk some Steelers football, take some questions, all that great stuff. And then if we get to 200 today, we'll do a boot. We're going to get into our next segment here, which is one that I had a lot of fun putting together here, Coop. I've watched all the film on all the top quarterback prospects this year, and I've come up with my list of quarterbacks that I would consider drafting this year if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's what we're going to be talking about next. And we got Christian Andujar in here. Says, sup, Jack and Coop.
What's up?
Tim Robinson says, Jack keeps saying Pittsburgh has a good O-line. I beg to differ.
I don't think he's ever said that.
I have actually never said that. I said the Steelers think that they have a bright future at that position.
Not that we think.
Like, with Pat Meyer at O-line coach.
Is he the worst O-line coach in the NFL?
He's bad, man. And then, Broderick Jones has not been good to start his career. Mason McCormick really struggled last year. And who knows if Troy Fautano can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very possible next year. This is just a complete disaster on the offensive line next year.
It's a high-risk offensive line for sure. I mean, if you're banking on Broderick to protect the blind side, I think Broderick stinks, but the Steelers don't, clearly.
They spent a first-round pick on him.
I know.
So they believe in him.
I have faith in Mason McCormick to get it together. I think he just had a tough rookie season. Like you said, they were basically expecting him to have a redshirt year, and he had to be thrust right into the action. Troy Fautanu had the knee injury, was out for the year. Out of all three of those, he's probably the one I have the most belief in, but we haven't seen him play yet.
Yeah, and when people tell me, Jack, I don't believe in this team because I don't believe in the O-line, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
All right, like Pat Myers, the O-line coach, two of the 5 starters have not played well so far.
Why did they not fire him?
I don't know. They should have fired him. It's an absolute joke. But listen, man, my thinking is, the Steelers think they're close. So if you're going to try to win, you might as well try to win. All right, don't play footsie with it. Like, if you're going to try to win in the next 2 years, go and make a big move for Matthew Stafford.
Oh, yeah.
All right, go make a big move for somebody else. All right, I don't want to, keep Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, and Minkah Fitzpatrick in place and get a quarterback that I just don't think is going to be able to win a Super Bowl in the next 2 years like Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins. You want to make a bigger move that can make that happen if you're going to go that strategy. Because obviously the Steelers are not giving up. They're not rebuilding. They would have fired Tomlin. They would have already extended Fields. They would have fired Khan. They would have completely started over with a new coaching staff, They would have traded. They would be shopping T.J. Watt right now. They'd be shopping Cam Hayward.
This
They'd be
ain't a
shopping
rebuild.
Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's not a rebuild. They are still trying to win. So if they're going to keep trying to win, my philosophy is let's go all in for it then. Let's not just get these quarterbacks that aren't capable of doing it. If you have an opportunity to get a Super Bowl champion at quarterback and you think this offensive line is going to be good, all right, take the risk.
Yeah.
And if they stink, then you blow it up. All right, but I don't want to keep doing the same things that they've been doing and not make big moves.
100% agreed.
All right, we got some more super chats that we'll get to here momentarily. Do we want to just get into the final segment here?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, let's just get into the final segment here, and we'll get to the super chats here on the other side of this final segment. It's another draft segment here, guys. Quarterback targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 2025 NFL Draft are coming at you right now. Today on Steelers Talk, I am sharing my list of quarterbacks that if I were the Pittsburgh Steelers, that I would consider drafting in this year's NFL Draft. All right, welcome into the show. It's going to be a fun one. Going to be very in-depth, breaking down all the top quarterback prospects in this year's NFL Draft. But before we get into it, let me know down there in the comments section, do you want Pittsburgh to draft a quarterback at some point during this year's draft? If so, let me know which one you want the Steelers to draft down there in the comments section. So before we get into the names here, keep in mind that Pittsburgh is in a win-now mindset, all right? If they were rebuilding, I think they would have fired Mike Tomlin. T.J. Watt would be getting shopped right now, not signing an extension, which is what the Steelers plan to do. Cam Hayward would be getting traded. Minkah Fitzpatrick would be getting traded, and they would be cleaning house, all right? They'd be starting over. That's not what the Steelers are doing. They're trying to win now. They think that they're close to a Super Bowl championship, and I understand that a lot of Steelers fans disagree with that, but that's what the team thinks. So, with that in mind, young quarterbacks don't win championships. All right, if you haven't made a playoff in your career, the chances that you're going to win a Super Bowl in your first playoff experience is like 0%, close to 0%. There's not many that do it, and it usually takes quarterbacks at least 3 years, unless you're like Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson. You get like a great supporting cast like with the Legion of Boom before you even think about competing for Super Bowl championships. So I don't think the Steelers are going to be starting a rookie as their number one quarterback next year. I do not think that's the plan. I don't think it's their plan to trade up for a quarterback. I don't think it's their plan to draft a quarterback in round 2 and start him day 1. I think that if the Steelers take a quarterback, it's going to be somebody that could be a long-term option but isn't going to start in 2025. So first, let's start with the quarterbacks that I think Pittsburgh should avoid. Now, this isn't necessarily me saying that these are bad quarterbacks, right? I actually think a lot of these quarterbacks on this list are actually pretty decent, but I think these are quarterbacks that either it's going to be too high to go get them and the price is going to be too high to get them, or I don't think that they're a fit to play in the AFC North. So you take a look at my list of quarterbacks to avoid. Cam Ward, it's going to take way too much to go up and trade for him. I just don't think that's even a possibility, so, just avoid him. Shadur Sanders, he might drop a little bit, but even then, I don't think the Steelers should trade up for him. Doesn't have a strong arm. I don't think that he would be a particular fit in the AFC North. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel and Max Brosmer. I actually have a round 3 grade on Dylan Gabriel. I actually like him quite a bit in the right offense and with the right team. But in the AFC North, where the conditions are crazy, Dylan Gabriel's noodle arm is not exactly going to be the best fit. So I think that, the time just isn't right for the Pittsburgh Steelers to go round 1 quarterback, all right? Like, if things completely blow up in their face this year, let's say they sign Aaron Rodgers and he sucks and the offensive line sucks next year and the defense continues their deterioration, then in that case, I think they do fire Mike Tomlin and they certainly look to get a quarterback in the 2026 NFL Draft. It's a better quarterback class next year, in my opinion. So I just don't think the time is right for the Steelers to consider quarterback, at least not in round 1. And, Gabriel and Brosmer don't have the arm, plain and simply, all right? And neither, in my opinion, neither does Shadur Sanders. I think that all of them have below-average NFL arms, and I think that they would not be good fits with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so for those reasons, I would avoid those 4 QBs. So what's the worst-case scenario? Let me know down there in the comments section. What is your nightmare scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback this year? And this can be draft, this can be free agency, this can be trade. What is the worst case scenario for the black and gold at quarterback this offseason? For me, it's Kirk Cousins. Daniel Jones, those 2 quarterbacks, please do not bring them to Pittsburgh, Omar Khan. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, let me know the worst case scenario for the Steelers at QB next year. So now let's talk some day 3 options for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'll talk guys that I would take on day 3, and then I'll talk about guys that I would take on day 2. There's 4 quarterbacks this year that I would take on day 3. If it's a 7th round flyer, I would consider Quinn Ewers out of Texas, all right? And Quinn is somebody that is massively talented physically, all right? Huge prospect coming out of high school for a reason. But there was a reason why this guy was projected to be a first-round pick to start every college football season over the last 5 years and has been decreased in value at the end of the season. All right, he's just so inconsistent. All right, my take on him is that he's got really good arm talent. He can throw with great touch when he wants. He can throw a fastball when he wants. And, when it's right, it looks really good for Quinn Ewers. It just doesn't happen enough. And, at Texas, he had a great O-line. Great weapons around him. I mean, he might have 2 wide receivers go in the first 2 rounds this year that were always open for him, and he had Sark calling his plays. All right, so that's a trifecta of, non-adversity that he had the benefit of playing with, and he was still way too inconsistent at Texas. It's going to be a lot harder for him in the league. I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback. I think he's going to be a straight-up bust. But, hey, 7th-round pick with the arm talent that he has, I would at least think about it if the Steelers haven't taken a signal caller yet. Then in the 5th round, I would consider Jalen Milroe. And Milroe is the type of guy that has incredible physical traits, great rusher of the football, huge arm capable of making big-time throws. And if he hits, he's going to be not only a starter, but a damn good starter in the National Football League. But he needs so much work, man. Like, he is a one-read to run quarterback through and through. Decision-making is certainly questionable. Accuracy is certainly questionable. There's a lot of bad things about Jalen Milroe's game heading into the league. So for me, I think that he might even have a future at running back just because he's got the body type to play running back in the league. If it doesn't work out at quarterback, he can certainly consider that. But if he develops, and he's going to need at least 2 years of development, he's got all the physical tools to be able to do the thing, which is be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. But because, the Steelers would need to wait at least 2 years before he's ready to do that, I think that the earliest I'd be willing to draft him is round 5. Also in the 5th round, I would consider Kyle McCord, and we got a little Ohio State photo of him right there. Of course, he went to Syracuse last year, but McCord had a really good season. He was against really poor competition. He was phenomenal. I think his numbers dipped quite significantly when he had to play tougher competition there with the Orange back in 2024. But he brings good size to the table. I think he's a very smart player. He understands where to put the football in terms of ball placement. He understands which shoulder to throw to. He does have an NFL arm. It's not an elite arm, but it's certainly workable in the National Football League. He does throw with anticipation. I think that, like I said, the intelligence. He does a really good job recognizing blitzes, which is something that's a little rare for college quarterbacks. And then I think the playmaking instincts are a little bit there as well. He's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he does have that ability to make some stuff happen outside of the pocket and out of structure. I don't think the athleticism's great. He does have a longer release, in my opinion. And then he does have a big turnover issue. He led the country last year in turnover-worthy play percentage. So lots of interception opportunities. He's going to have to really rein that in. And because of that, I'm not sure if he's a Tomlin type of quarterback. So I could have included McCord here on my list of just avoid them because Tomlin likely won't like the high turnover-worthy play percentage here. But at least for me, I like the intelligence. I like some of the accuracy stuff that he shows. I think he has an NFL arm. I think that he's going to be probably a pretty decent backup in the league. So because of that, I would draft him in round 5. Then in round 4, I would take Will Howard out of Ohio State. And Howard's intriguing because during the season, I think that his film wasn't all that great. But then when he got into the college football playoff, he really took it to a whole nother level. So that tells you that he got better throughout the 2024 season. So there is reason to hope, but there are still plenty of cons to his profile as well. I think that he is too much one read to run type of quarterback at times. He doesn't mentally process information all that well, at least not at this point in his journey. His pocket presence is abysmal, in my opinion. Playmaking instincts, if he's outside the pocket, he's looking to run. Accuracy has certainly had its ups and downs throughout his college career. And then he throws short of the sticks on third down a lot, all right? And it's like on his first read. So I don't know if Ohio State just asked him to complete a pass and then punt because their defense was so darn good last year. Of course, they won the national championship, but situational awareness wasn't phenomenal. But Howard has a strong arm. He can throw with nice touch down the field. He's got a really good deep ball, and when he's letting it rip, man, like he's got the tools to potentially be like a mid-level starting quarterback in the NFL. He just needs to develop the rest of his game, in my opinion, and I think that's worth a 4th-round pick, maybe even a late 3rd-round pick if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers and you really like his fit in your offense. So coming up next, my top 2 Steelers quarterback draft targets this year. These are guys that I would take on day 2. Because, of course, I don't have anyone that I would take in round 1. But before I reveal those 2 quarterbacks, if you guys want a Steelers beanie, you want to stay warm this winter. Of course, spring is right around the corner, but there's still some cold months there in Pittsburgh. We all know that. You can go chatsports.com/beanie to pick up this really stylish Steelers beanie on sale with our friends at Fanatics today. Also, if you use our link, chatsports.com/beanie, Fanatics will send us part of the proceeds with every purchase that you make. So you can get this for like $20 right now. That is a phenomenal deal in my opinion. Get yours today. Go to chatsports.com/beanie to get a new Steelers hat in your arsenal today. So day 2 draft targets, all right? Jackson Dart I would take in round 3. Not round 2, not round 1, round 3. All right, and I think that Jackson Dart is somebody that reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts when he was coming out, where he's got some significant issues he needs to work through, but he does have the ability to potentially become like a middle of the pack starting quarterback someday with great competitive toughness and can be the leader of your locker room. I think he brings great size to the table. I think he's got a good NFL arm. He can throw with some nice accuracy, especially down the field. He's got a great deep ball with great touch on there. He's got flashes of anticipation on his film, which is something you want to see. I love his competitive toughness. I think Tomlin will really fall in love with that. And he is a plus rusher just like Hurts is, but the footwork and pocket presence are not very good at all. I think that his mental processing can certainly get stuck in place where he's looking at the first read, and if it's not there, he panics. And a lot of times that leads to bad decisions, especially in clutch moments, which is not something that I love about him. But I don't think he's like a superstar level upside type of guy, but I think he could be a mid-level starter with his set of skills. And my pro comp is that he's diet Jalen Hurts, all right? Like, I'm not sure if he's ever going to get to the point where Hurts is, because I don't think he's ever going to get the roster that Hurts has gotten the benefit of playing with there in Philadelphia. But, Hurts came into the league with his set of issues, and he has fixed those issues, over the course of his career with hard work and all these different things. And Dart has the opportunity to do that as well. He's got an NFL arm. He throws with good touch down the field. He's got a very similar profile to Hurts. And because Hurts has succeeded in this league, the blueprint does exist for a guy like Dart to have success in this league. So I would take him in round 3 if I were the Steelers, but no earlier. The only quarterback I'd take in round 2 is Louisville quarterback Tyler Shuck. And by the way, this is only if the very old, who's going to be 26 next year, Shuck, passes, the medical stuff for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, but when I look at his film, he's got so much good stuff about him, man. Such a smart player, all right? Such a smart player, recognizes the blitz, the mental processing. He can go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 extremely quickly, and he was forced to do that last year because his O-line at Louisville was god-awful. So he's played with poor offensive line play already in his career. That's something I really like. He's got great size. He's got really good arm talent as well. Super quick release. It's a B-plus NFL arm, which is more than you can say about guys like Shadur Sanders in this class. Super clean mechanics. If he has to get outside the pocket, he's more than athletic enough to do that. I think his pocket presence is phenomenal, and I think that his anticipation is off the charts as well. So when I look at his film, I think that, just based on the film, he's probably the second best quarterback in this class. But he's super old, all right? 7-year college player. Just really had his breakout season last year on a bad football team with the Louisville Cardinals, so he didn't get a ton of exposure. He's had multiple major injuries, so he's going to be an injury risk. And, he can be a little bit too conservative at times, but, hey, he gets to his check down, which looks to mental processing. My pro comp is that he's diet Joe Burrow. Now, very diet, all right, like negative calorie Joe Burrow, but, like, he plays the game in a similar fashion. And, he's big. He's got the clean mechanics that Burrow has. Anticipation is really, really good. I'm not saying he's Joe Burrow, but he's that similar type of player where he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he just has a great feel for the game. And, I actually prefer Shuck's tape to Shadur Sanders's, where Sanders doesn't have a good NFL arm. Shuck does. And Sanders actually has some issues with anticipation, whereas Shuck, I think, might have the best anticipation of anybody in the class. That is like what he does, and that is something that I really care about when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. So Shuck is going to be interesting because I think his evaluation comes down to the medical. If his shoulder and his knee issues are just too much for teams to take a risk on, he's going to be a day 3 pick. But I think just based on the film alone, anybody that's watched his film knows how good this guy played at Louisville last year. And if he passes the medical stuff in Indianapolis at the Combine here, heading into the draft, I think he's going to be a day 2 draft pick. So real one roll call here. This is a little bit of a longer one. Obviously, we talked about a lot of different quarterback prospects today. If you're a real one, you made it to the end of today's show. Type those real ones in all caps so I know you made it to the end of today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for all the support that you give to me, Coop, and everybody that runs this channel here at Chat Sports, all the support that you do. I'll see you guys later, and until next time, here we go, Steelers. Chris, $5 super says, Jack, no QB can win a Super Bowl with our O-line. Both tackle positions are a question, and Jones may be a bust. Bring in a free agent tackle or 2. They're not going to do that, Chris. I hate to break it to you, but they just spent...
I agree with you, Chris, but...
I don't necessarily disagree with Chris, but, the thing is the Steelers love Broderick Jones and Troy Fautano, and that might be their demise. And like I said, if anybody says, I don't believe in this team because I don't believe in the O-line, more than fair. I mean, if you bring back Justin Fields behind this O-line and it stinks, there might be 60 sacks next year, though. Fields takes so many sacks. So,
But, Jack, he's good at making plays off schedule and running.
Yeah, and listen, man, I can't tell you this offensive line is going to be good next year. I can't guarantee that. There's way too many question marks. And you're right, Chris. This offensive line has so many question marks, including 2 at offensive tackle. Now, if Fautano stays healthy, I don't have a problem with him. I loved his film coming out of Washington. He's a good player. All right. Question is, will he stay healthy? I don't know the answer to that. G-Man says, if we acquire Stafford, which I am for, with the extra $40 million, we needed to bring in Godwin or Slayton types. So I think what they do is they probably bring in Cooper Kupp. And I don't know what the dollar figure would be, but I think that's what they would want to do. And then they draft a wide receiver.
I'd be in on that.
I think that's what they do if they bring in Stafford. So that's what I think. $5 from Joshua Bailey.
I like this one.
Says, what about Curtis Rourke? I think he's better than Shuck.
One game or you die? Give me Curtis Rourke.
No. I'm not that high on Curtis Rourke. Joshua, he's not in my top 10 quarterback prospects this year. It's just my opinion on him. I don't think that he's necessarily a pro quarterback. He's going to be like a third-string caliber guy, in my opinion. Now, I've only watched 2 games from him. So maybe, because of you, Joshua, I'll pull up a couple more games of Curtis Rourke and see if something looks different than the 2 games I watched.
Do they make Indiana Hoosiers film?
Oh, yeah. They make Indiana Hoosiers film. So, Joshua, just for you, I'll pull up some Curtis Rourke tonight, and I'll see if my opinion changes. But out of the 2 games that I saw from him, he is nowhere close to Tyler Shuck. But that's just my opinion. Chris says, are the Steelers so intent to prove the Rooney Rule that they refuse to fire Tomlin? Jesus. I'm not saying Tomlin isn't a good coach, but change is needed. I still think that they think that if you put the right roster around Tomlin, they can win. And that was proven when he won his first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All right? A lot of the players that Tomlin had on his roster his first Super Bowl, it was brought in by Bill Cowher. But a lot of people say that was Bill Cowher's team. And it's true from the perspective of Cowher built that team, but it was Tomlin's locker room. If you listen to any of the players from that Super Bowl run, they will all tell you that Mike Tomlin is the best leader that they have ever played for. All right? Now, Tomlin's issue is building the roster. He has not been able to build an O-line. He has not been able to get the right quarterback since Ben retired. And even the defense has underwhelmed multiple seasons.
And honestly, he hasn't gotten the right offensive coordinator in there for...
Yeah, and his eye for offensive coordinator help and talent is just abysmal.
Yeah, not good.
He has ended...
Let's call it what it is.
He has ended multiple careers at OC. Matt Canada...
He's done.
He's not employed by an NFL team.
Yeah.
Multiple of his offensive coordinators are not employed. So, Chris, you guys know if you've been watching the channel, I wanted them to fire Mike Tomlin or at least trade him at the end of the season.
You said you wanted to move on. You did say.
I wanted to move on. I thought the time was right.
But we knew that wasn't happening.
But yeah. And now, because in multiple weeks and almost like months have passed here, they're not firing Tomlin.
No way.
All right, so we have to, we have to go along. We have to move forward with the 2025 season with the knowledge that Tomlin will be back next year.
Do we just need to create some scandal around Tomlin and get him fired?
No, we're not going to do that.
We're not going to diminish a good man's
but
name.
Here's what I'll say: if the Steelers, if he has his first non-winning season next year and they don't win and they don't make the playoffs, I think he's gone.
I do too.
And by the way, if the offensive line is going to be as bad as what many Steelers fans expect it to be next year, then yeah, I think he probably gets fired.
I'll be honest, at this point, the offensive line is as much on him as it is Pat Meyer. It's his fault for keeping Pat Meyer around.
Yeah. I mean, why does he keep Pat Meyer around?
It makes no sense.
He's been so bad for so many years, and this is such a critical season for Broderick Jones, for Troy Fautano, for Mason McCormick. If they don't have a good O-line coach in there, who knows, man? Like it might be yet another season and yet another crop of Steelers young offensive linemen that go down the shitter.
Yeah.
2 first-round picks potentially down the toilet.
Could be. Not good, man.
And if that's the case, the Steelers have no shot at a Super Bowl next year.
None.
I will say that right now. As somebody that thinks the Steelers has a chance and they should be building for a potential Super Bowl run this year, if the O-line is not good next year, it's over. It's over. All right? And that's just the way that it is.
And, what's your what's your confidence level in the O-line being good? Mine's not very high, I'll be honest.
On a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah.
What do we classify as good?
6 or better? Mike, mine's not a 6.
Listen, man.
I'm at a 4?
Listen, man, this is the way I'll phrase it. I have optimism for the group because there's a lot of young talent there.
Fair enough.
You've got 2 first-round talents at the bookends at tackle. If Fautano stays healthy and Broderick gets more comfortable on the left side, they could be legit. But they could also be a disaster because Fautano might have chronic knee issues and then Broderick might just suck. And if that's the case, this team's
They're
done.
doomed.
This team's doomed. And Tomlin's going to get fired and everyone's going to get their wish. So, honestly, if you want Tomlin fired, them making no changes to the offensive line is probably the move that you want them to make.
Yeah.
Because if it hits, great. Their offense is all of a sudden fixed because you can actually run the football and protect the quarterback.
And if it's not.
But if it's not, the team's going to suck next year.
And he's getting fired.
And he gets fired.
Yeah.
And you start over, right? So, at the end of the day, I think next year we're going to learn a lot about this organization in the future. It's a very pivotal season. Very pivotal. Brian03, $5, says, Gruden for head coach when Tomlin is gone. Also, would you guys take a job with an NFL team, even though it might be with a team you hate, like Baltimore, Cleveland? No.
If the Ravens want to hire me, you can email me.
I am good.
I'm kidding. I love Chat Sports.
I love this job, man. I am so glad to be on this side of the,
The Ravens or the Browns
side.
would have to pay me a lot of money to leave my job. A lot of money.
I don't even think I would take. I just love what I do. I mean, I don't even think I'd want to work for those 2 teams with respect to Baltimore and Cleveland.
Actually, no respect to Baltimore and Cleveland.
No respect to those teams. When it comes to Gruden, you could do worse.
Is he still too radioactive with his scandals and everything that happened?
I don't think so. He's become so much more mainstream because of this Barstool
He
stuff.
has. He was doing some weird shit over there.
My choice next year, if Tomlin gets fired, my choice would be Brian Flores.
Someone mentioned that in the chat.
I would want Brian Flores because he's got connections.
Tim Robinson mentioned that.
Because he can hire a good OC because he's got connections to the Kevin O'Connell and Sean McVay tree here.
Does the Flores and Tua stuff give you any pause?
A little bit, but honestly, I think that he's a changed man.
You think he learned from it?
Because when he got the Miami job, all he ever knew was Belichick tyrancy. Like his idea, he was there for what?
Yeah, he was there for a long time.
8 years.
Yeah.
O'Connell with Mike Tomlin, and then Kevin O'Connell, 2 player-type coaches that get massive amount of respect from their players, and just really inspire a lot of inspiration among their groups. I mean, I think that he's learned a lot from those 2 men, and I think he deserves another chance. I think Brian Flores.
I'd be in on it.
Brian Flores is a hell of a coach. He's a great defensive mind, and he's got access to the Sean McVay tree in terms of his offensive coordinator that he could hire.
I'd be in on it.
So I think Brian is the guy that I would probably go out and get. Go get B-Flow. Until then, we're stuck with Tomlin, and hopefully they can build a roster, and hopefully that offensive line pans out next year. That's all I'm going to say. All right, thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's show. You guys are real ones. We'll see you guys on Thursday for more coverage from the NFL Draft Combine in Indianapolis. Until then, we'll see you, and here we go, Steelers.